All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all honor, praise, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Barak HaKodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations to the elect scattered abroad. All right, this is Brother Barbazal here with a lesson, and Lord willing, it's edifying. All right, and the title of this lesson will be, You Have to Be in the Right Spirit. All right. Or the importance of being in the right spirit, because, currently you got these guys, these different camps in general, but you got these guys, priest deacon from Genesis and Hakah, formerly of the Sakari. You got guys in, the ISUPK, things like that. And these guys is, pretty much, they're not in the right spirit. All right. And, in this thing, you got to be in the spirit of prophecy. All right. Because currently we're at the end and we're seeing the downfall of this kingdom. And yet, it seems like the main focus, of these people's, ministry is, debates and, giving, I guess, Israelites counseling and, things like that. Right. When we're supposed to be going into, prophecy. We're supposed to edify the flock. All right. And all that, debates and, clickbait titles do is, get people to click on the videos for, entertainment purposes. All right. Not to get edified, or to really to learn anything. All right. It's just, for clicks, entertainment, money. All right. And, that's what these guys have been doing. Right. And let's get this Titus 1:10. It says, For there are many unruly and vain talkers and deceivers, especially they of the circumcision, meaning, the Israelites, who woke up to the fact that they're Israelites, understand that, go out, preach, but with that being said, you got a lot of these guys who use, being in the truth, being the Israelite, the knowledge of being the Israelite for the wrong reasons, and when you see what they do, with this knowledge, you question their, intentions and sincerity. All right. And I got this guy, Priest Genesis Mode, right? The deacon Hakah, or Priest Hakah, I guess that's his name now. And you can see this. Look, Priest Hakah and Hassad destroy entire Coliseum debate league. So these guys made a whole, debate league. You see? And how was this edifying, man? Going back and forth, debating. That's not what the men of the Lord is supposed to be doing. All right, you're supposed to go out and teach people the person learn from you. Now, in certain instances, you out there, you may have a, back and forth with a Christian unbeliever, whatever the case may be. All right. But that's not the main focus. All right. The main focus is to go out and preach, blow the trumpet. Right. Going to, prophesy the downfall of this kingdom. All right. Not make it a Coliseum debate league. And then you got the second video here. ISUPK battles GMS Israelites heated street debate. And this is just purely clickbait, man. All right, it wasn't no debate or nothing like that. All right, but, this is what these guys do, in order to get people to click on the video. And you even got people on, in the comment section saying, this wasn't a debate, this and that, clickbait, all this, But that's what they click in the video to see. That's all they want to see. All right. And that's what they do, man. And this guy, deacon, he just purely in this thing for entertainment, always changing the doctrine, attempting to be, deep. All right. Things of that nature when, the main focus should be prophecy. All right, verse 11, it says, whose mouths must be stopped, who subvert whole houses, teaching things which they ought not for filthy lucre's sake. There you go. All right, and that's all what it's about, man. Monetary gain. You got Israelites saying that the end goal of being the Israelite is, building communities and things like that, which they're completely not in the right spirit. All right, and when you're not in the right spirit, this is the result of it. Guys like Tazariot, guys like the Genesis. All right, guys like what ended up happening with Sakari, with Alazar. Who completely these guys I guess the newest thing now is they're saying that the Apostle Paul was teaching was teaching his church to commit idolatry. That's completely off, man. All right, but they do anything to discredit Paul's writings. All right, make it seem like he wasn't authoritative. He didn't have authority. All so they can just, put hats on their heads and grow their hair out. All right. And and you see what happened to their leader, man, Alazar, man. He completely fell out, man. Because he wasn't in the right spirit, man. Hebrew in the Hellcat, all right, being a Crip leader or whatever, holding on to being the Crip. All right, he denounced being a Hebrew Israelite, but he didn't denounce Crippin', man. And this is the man that they followed. All right. Now, even though they they kind of went their separate ways, the apple don't fall too far off the tree, man. See? All right. Let's get the next precept. So it's Proverbs 23 and 23. Buy the truth and sell it not. Also wisdom and instruction and understanding. That's another thing. All right. People use it for monetary gain, selling breakdowns, Hebrew names. You got to pay for counseling and, all these different things. All right. Pretty much, putting a dollar sign behind the truth, man. And you're using the truth as a hustle, rather than, to use it for what it's supposed to be used for, then like to Lord's be a vessel to gather the elect. It's not about money. All right. It's not about having this rank, this status. All right. Being this top guy. All right. It's simply about, preaching the word of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, right? Being a servant of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, not exalting yourself. All right, being a humble servant. All right. Whatever you do to make your money or whatever the case may be, that's got to be separated from the truth, whether you got a job, business, whatever the case may be, this truth shouldn't be involved with that. You shouldn't make any money based off of, the truth, man. And a lot of these guys, they going to start to be getting judged, man. All right, because they're in the wrong spirit, taking the bag. All right, leading, their followers to the slaughter, man. All right, so these guys going to have to get judged sooner than later, man. All right, lest they repent, which, a lot of them, especially these different leaders, probably won't repent, man. And we do believe that, the elect is, remnants of the elect is scattered throughout these different groups. All right. They'll wake up out of it. All right. But at the end of the day, it's still a lot that's going to have to be destroyed. All right. Especially for what they say against, the men of the Lord, right? GMS, those who follow the apostles and elders, a GMS, constantly slandering, bringing out the ancient customs, and all of a sudden, they, were slandered for it, but the Lord sees all that. All right. And the scriptures say every idle word you got to give account to in the day of judgment. So, they're going to have to deal with that. All right. And this last precept is Revelation 19 and 10. And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, see thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahweh Shai. Worship Yahweh, for the testimony of Yahweh Shai is the spirit of prophecy. You see? And, this guy, he don't go into prophecy, man. You see? Exposing Drewski. Paul taught idolatry. ISUPK battles GMS. Coliseum League. Why don't you go into the MOTB, Mark of the Beast? Break it down, man. All right, I think they do believe that the Mark of the Beast is to see him. Brothers can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that they believe in that. All right. Going to the world events. What's going on. The civil unrest. All right. Certain benefits being stripped away. All right, that's what we got to look for. The followers of these different groups ain't gonna be built up, in that time, man. They're not being spiritually built up. All right. So that's why these guys gonna have to, and then look, God hates hats. Nothing really edifying in this. All right. We got to get into, the prophecy, breaking down the prophecy, looking at the world events and filtering it, through the prophecies of the Bible, man. Because we at the end, it ain't no another 1,000 years of this thing, man, contrary to certain people's beliefs. Okay. We at the end of the end, man. We gotta treat, we gotta treat it as such. All right. But that'll do it for the lesson. Lord, that was edifying. So with that, I'd like to give all honor, praise, and glory unto Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Ruach HaKodesh. So,